please like this video and subscribe this channel. I hope you enjoy the story. Let's begin. At 9:03 a.m., the courtroom smelled like coffee and cologne, and I looked over at Rhea. She wasn't nervous. She wasn't grieving. She was already gone. At some point, she'd stopped being mine, and I hadn't even noticed. Her lawyer smirked. I'll never forget it. That half-cocked grin like he was already counting his cut. "Enjoy your new life," he whispered as we stood to leave. New life? No, this wasn't the end. It was the start of something much darker. Because at what point does a man decide he's had enough? And more importantly, what does he do once he has? Hey, if you're still watching, that means you're enjoying the story. I have one small request. I'm trying to reach my first 1,000 subscribers. If you like stories like this, please hit the like button and subscribe to join the journey. It means a lot to me. And trust me, even better stories are coming. Our wedding song was still saved on my Spotify. I didn't delete it. I didn't delete anything. Because if I started erasing the past, I might forget how deep she'd cut. Our house, I muttered, standing in the living room that now smelled like fresh paint and new lies. The realtor had staged it already. Clean countertops, generic pillows, a fake plant in the corner. But I remembered the truth under it all. This was the house where I'd found the first clue. It was hidden in a drawer labeled Our Taxes, a burner phone, 3 messages, all from someone named B. Can't wait to see you again. Tell him you're working late. Did you delete the footage? That third one chilled me. Footage? I pulled the drawer wider and saw a receipt tucked behind the phone. Lux Hotel, room 507. For nights. I laughed, and it sounded like a cough. How poetic. Our taxes paid for a getaway. I kept that drawer open all night, just staring at it. I didn't cry. I didn't throw anything. I started writing everything down. Dates, names, places, and I opened a secret folder on my cloud drive, labeled, Ours No More. She'd taken ours and made it hers. So now I take something back. Maybe not the house, maybe not the love, but her comfort, her confidence, her ability to sleep through the night. Our life is over, she told me in court. She was wrong. It was just getting started. The last time she said, I love you, she didn't mean it. I know that now. I knew it even then. But I needed to believe her one final time. Final is a strange word. It promises closure. But all I felt was an open wound. I walked through our storage unit late that night, brushing dust off old furniture, books, and wedding albums. I wasn't looking for memories. I was looking for evidence. That's when I found the blue tote bag. Inside, an old camcorder, one we hadn't used in years. But the SD card inside, it still worked. I sat in my car, rain pelting the windshield, and watched the files. Birthday parties, beach trips, a blurry video of Rhea talking on the phone, pacing, laughing. Then another clip, shorter, darker. It wasn't filmed by us. It was of us. A camera angled through a bedroom window. Rhea in lingerie. Me in the shower. A male voice whispering, he has no idea. I paused the video. My hands were shaking. This wasn't a fling. This was a setup. A final betrayal. Not for passion, for leverage. I looked at the date on the file. 6 months before she filed for divorce. 6 months. She'd filmed me without my knowledge. She'd staged scenes. And I had proof now. I wasn't just dealing with a cheating wife. I was up against someone who had planned to destroy me. The final word she ever spoke to me in love was forever. Funny, because now, forever has a different meaning. What else did she record? Court isn't what you see on TV. It's quieter, colder, almost polite. But underneath the marble floors and rehearsed objections, it's still a war zone. And I was the only one who walked in without armor. I sat on the left. Rhea sat on the right. She wore all black, maybe to mourn our marriage, maybe to celebrate its funeral. I watched her lawyer, Derek Manson, slide papers across the table like playing cards. Confident, greased back hair, fake smile. He barely looked at me, except when he was trying to read how close I was to breaking. Mr. Huxley, the court has reviewed the division of assets. Your wife has waived rights to the retirement accounts in exchange for half the house. I cut in. She gets half the house. And the lake property, yours, Manson said, eyes gleaming. Unless we revisit the prenup language. He knew exactly what he was doing. This wasn't negotiation. It was a setup. He wanted me agitated, off balance. And Rhea? She sat calmly beside him, legs crossed, fingers motionless, not a single twitch. Then something strange happened. I saw him look at her, just for a moment. Too long. Too comfortable. I wasn't crazy. They'd spoken before this. Maybe more than once. Maybe intimately. I locked in. This court wasn't here to give me justice. It was just another stage. But I wasn't going to play the quiet, broken man anymore. From now on, I was here to study every word, every look, every lie. And when this was over, court would no longer be the place where I lost. It would be the place where everything started burning down. It wasn't just the judge hearing us that day. It was the court reporter, the bailiff, the woman sitting 2 rows behind me who hadn't blinked in 20 minutes. It was the journalist I caught scribbling notes behind a coffee cup, pretending not to be eavesdropping. This wasn't just a hearing. It was a performance. And Rhea was delivering the performance of her life. Blaine was distant, she said softly. He was never abusive. Just cold. Quiet. I tried to reach him, but he shut me out. That stung. Because it wasn't completely false. But it wasn't the truth either. I'd pulled away because I felt her leaving me before she ever packed a bag. Manson nodded sympathetically. And did he ever? No. She cut in, shaking her head. He never touched me. He didn't have to. The silence did enough. A small gasp came from the gallery. I clenched my jaw. Not because I was angry. Because I was impressed. Rhea had always been good with words. But now, she was lethal. Then came my turn. Mr. Huxley, the judge said, "Do you have a statement?" I stood. Not for them, for me. My wife is right, I said. I was silent. But not because I didn't care. Because I was afraid of what I already knew. Manson tried to object. Overruled. I turned to Rhea. You weren't the only one hurting. You were just the first one to lie about it. I sat back down. The room shifted. The judge scribbled something. The reporter paused. They were hearing the truth now. But would it matter? My heart was still beating too fast. Even after the hearing, even after I got in the car and shut the door, wouldn't slow down. I gripped the wheel, tried to breathe, but all I could think was, how did I let this happen to my life? Not ours, not hers, Mine. Everything I'd built, everything I'd given. She walked away like it was just a lease she broke early. I drove aimlessly, ended up at a gas station 2 hours out of Portland. I bought coffee, sat in the car, and watched the parking lot for 20 minutes. Then I opened my phone and scrolled to a hidden folder. One I'd created the night I found a burner phone. Inside were photos, screenshots, logs, hotel bookings, calendar syncs, duplicate file names. Proof. My proof. But it wasn't enough. I needed more. That's when I called Mark, my oldest friend. Ex-cop, now a private investigator. Hey, I said, you still have those surveillance guys? He paused. You sure you want to go down this road, Blaine? She took everything that was mine, I said. Now I'm taking something back. He didn't ask again. I sent him the hotel info, timestamps, the lawyer's name, and Rhea's new address. This wasn't about saving face anymore. It was about reclaiming something that mattered more than dignity. My control, my truth, my revenge, and maybe even my freedom. The worst part wasn't the betrayal. It was the realization that the woman I loved had planned it. My wife's affair wasn't emotional. It was strategic. Rhea didn't fall in love with someone else. She partnered with someone who could replace me financially, legally, and socially. His name? Dr. Brandon Lux, a cosmetic surgeon with a God complex and a history of quiet settlements. Mark, my PI friend, sent over surveillance photos. Rhea and Brandon. Hotel balcony. Wine glasses in hand. Then another. Rhea leaving his office, 2 hours after closing time. I stared at the screen. Felt nothing. Then, I felt everything. Rage, shame, and something else. Motivation. I opened my laptop and created a new folder. Wife's mistake. Inside, I dropped every photo, every receipt. Then I started tracking Brandon's online activity. He wasn't discreet. Late-night Instagram likes, Venmo transactions, and a very interesting 3-star review from a woman claiming post-op trauma, filed under a fake name. Maybe Rhea chose him for his money. But she didn't realize his reputation was paper thin. And now, she tied her future to a man just as exposed as she was. I used to think lawyers were just paid actors with nice pens. But Derek Manson? He was something else. Something darker. Slick suit. Calculated words. That fake concern in his eyes when he told the judge I might be struggling emotionally. He knew exactly what he was doing. Mark pulled his background. Divorce attorney for over 15 years. Settled hundreds of high-profile cases. But 5 years ago, he'd been sued by a former client. Allegations of manipulation. Undisclosed relationships. The case? Quietly dropped. Sealed. Guess who the client was? Ria's college roommate. Coincidence? I don't believe in those anymore. So I met Manson. Not in court. In private. Ran into him accidentally at a charity gala I knew he'd be attending. He smiled when he saw me. Didn't expect to see you here, Huxley. I don't think you expect a lot of things, Derek. He raised his drink, mocking me. Here's to new beginnings. I leaned in and said just loud enough. Be careful who you build your future with. Some of us know how to burn bridges and leave no ashes behind. He didn't smile after that, because he knew I wasn't bluffing. I've seen war zones, not the kind with guns, but with silence, with fake smiles, with betrayal dressed in lipstick. But nothing hit me harder than that smirk. Derek Manson's smirk at the final hearing. Like he already knew the outcome. Like I was just background noise to his paycheck. It wasn't arrogance. It was insurance. He thought he'd won. Because people like him, they always think they're smarter, smoother, safer. That smirk haunted me until I realized what it meant. He didn't know I'd been recording. That final hearing? I left a voice recorder in my inside jacket pocket. Captured every word, every manipulation. His deal with the judge's clerk? Caught on tape. Ria signing a date-stamped letter of intent with Brandon 6 months before filing? Buried in my email drafts, saved for the right moment. The smirk was premature. And now, I smile back, just not in front of him. I'm saving mine for the finale. You know, I've told you my story so far. Now I'm curious. Where are you watching from? Drop your city in the comments. I want to know who's riding with me in this storm. Portland? Houston? Vegas? Or maybe you're watching from somewhere quiet, like nothing ever happens there. Trust me, that's exactly what she thought too. She threw a party 2 weeks after the divorce was finalized. Not just a casual dinner or girls' night. A full-blown house party. Lights, music, people, champagne flutes. In Brandon. I know because I was there. Not invited, but present. I parked 2 houses down, stepped out with a borrowed baseball cap, and walked up the side alley through the fence like I belonged. No one questioned me. People don't ask questions when there's wine and music and Instagram stories being filmed every 5 seconds. Inside, Ria laughed like nothing had ever touched her. Like she hadn't lied under oath. Like she hadn't broken a man and walked away richer for it. She looked free, but freedom has a price. I waited until she walked into the kitchen. Alone, wine bottle in one hand, phone in the other. Enjoying the view? I asked just behind her. She jumped. Spilled a little wine on the counter. Blaine, are you serious? You can't just walk in here, why not? I said, I helped pay for it. She scowled. You're trespassing. I leaned in closer. Calm. Still. Just wanted to say congratulations, I whispered. Enjoy it. Every second. The house. The man. The money. I stepped back toward the door. Because soon, you'll be begging for your old life back. She didn't laugh. And for the first time since the courtroom, she looked scared. I left her party, drove 3 blocks away, and parked in front of Brandon Lux's clinic. The lights were off, but the building's Wi-Fi still active. Mark had slipped me a tool when I shouldn't have. I pulled out the laptop, cracked the connection, and found a device named YourSurgeon_Lux. Goo. A few lines of code later, I was inside his admin panel. Appointments, client records, video files. I clicked on a folder labeled Consults, Private. There she was, Ria, sitting across from him, months before the divorce. You'll make this easy, right? She said. He laughed. Easier than you think. When it's over, you'll have everything. Your money, your freedom, your story, he repeated. I copied the file. Then I opened a new tab and logged into a private email account I created under a fake name. Attached the video. Typed a short message. Dear Oregon Medical Board, you might want to review this footage. Sincerely, a concerned nobody. I hit send, then sat there in the dark. Because sometimes revenge isn't fire or fury. Sometimes it's just a whisper, aimed at the right place. The night was quiet, but I could already hear it, the sound of their reputation beginning to rot. The next morning, I walked out of a cheap motel with a new name, new phone, and a new plan. I wasn't Blaine Huxley anymore. Not in the digital world, at least. Online, I was Logan Pierce, cybersecurity consultant. Relocated, rebuilt, rewired. No forwarding address, no linked accounts, no digital fingerprints. I was finally untraceable. It felt clean, like taking a breath after being underwater for too long. I moved into a furnished studio outside Sedona, Arizona. Quiet, barely a signal. The kind of town where people mind their business and don't ask what you used to be. I started doing freelance security gigs online. Basic stuff, except I wasn't taking jobs for money. I was using them to build access. One company I worked with handled real estate data. Guess who still had listings under her name? Rhea. Her license was clean, for now, but her records were sloppy. One sale, in particular, stood out. A flipped condo where she underreported square footage and added a fake inspection certificate. If I exposed it, it'd look small. But that's the beauty of small things. They add up, and when enough of them fall, the whole new life she built starts to crack. There's something funny about watching someone live the life they stole from you. Rhea's Instagram looked like a catalog for the perfect modern woman. New house, new man, new car, inspirational quotes in the captions. Grateful for this new season of life. Letting go of what no longer serves me. I scrolled through every one of them like they were a crime scene. Because they were. That life was mine. The lake house, I designed it. Drew on a napkin the night she said she wanted somewhere quiet. The car, I picked it out after she said her old one felt cursed. The man, he was a placeholder, a temporary mask. And soon it would slip. Mark called me that afternoon. I got something. He sent a file, a call recording. A former assistant from Rhea's real estate office had quit. Quietly. But before she left, she made a backup of everything. Emails. Notes, transactions. Life's not fair, she said in the recording, but Rhea, she makes it a sport. There it was. Proof of shady deals, false disclosures, inflated appraisals. It wasn't enough to get her arrested, but it was enough to destroy her credibility. I closed my laptop and looked out the motel window. It was raining again. Somewhere out there, Rhea was laughing over wine, thinking she'd won. And me, I was just getting started. It didn't take long for the first crack to show. A buyer posted a review online. Agent lied about the roof inspection. Cost me $8,000 in repairs. Do not trust her. Then another. Pushed me into a sale without telling me the HOA was bankrupt. One post might be noise, but three is a pattern. By the end of the week, a local housing blog picked it up. Rhea's name got dropped in an article about toxic agents manipulating first-time buyers. The following morning, I watched a live stream from my motel bed. The news segment was short, but brutal. Multiple complaints have surfaced about realtor Rhea Halden, some involving falsified paperwork and client manipulation. Her photo popped up beside the headline, "Top Realtor Now Under Fire." I could almost feel the panic hitting her chest. That perfect life she posted, it was starting to collapse. Brandon Lux made a statement hours later, distancing himself. My relationship with Ms. Halden is personal, not professional. I have no knowledge of her business dealings. Of course he bailed. Cowards do that when the heat rises. I closed the laptop and smiled. Collapse isn't loud at first. It starts with hairline fractures. A review here, a headline there. Then one day, everything falls at once. And when it does, I'll be watching. I used to think surveillance meant cameras, microphones, wiretaps. Turns out, all you need is curiosity and time. People give away everything online. Passwords, routines, desires, weaknesses. Rhea had a new smart system in her house. Lighting, temperature, security. All controlled from her phone. A phone Brandon helped set up, and Brandon used the same password for everything. Took me 10 minutes. I was in. Her house cam footage synced to a cloud storage I now had access to. I didn't watch the videos all at once. I studied them slowly, looked for patterns, voices, moments when she thought she was alone. One night, I caught something. She was in the kitchen, talking to herself. Nervous. Drinking. She whispered, "They're watching me." I leaned forward. She pulled out a burner phone. "Don't call me on this line again," she hissed. "You said no one would find out." There was silence. Then she nodded. "Fine. I'll handle it. Just remember, you still owe me." She hung up. I paused the footage. Who was she talking to? Brandon? Or someone else? Who still owed her? I downloaded the clip. Saved it under a new folder. Watchtower. Surveillance wasn't about catching her cheating anymore. It was about finding out what else she was hiding. And when the truth finally came out, I wasn't just going to leak it. I was going to bury them with it. Some truths don't explode. They leak, slow and steady, until the entire dam cracks. I didn't need to expose Rhea directly. I just needed the right people to see what I saw. So I started with a folder of footage. Nothing illegal, just uncomfortable. A clip of Rhea berating a client. Another showing her signing a backdated document. A recorded Zoom call where she bragged about playing dumb buyers like puppets. No edits. No commentary. Just a raw truth. I uploaded it anonymously to a real estate whistleblower forum. And within 2 hours, it was on Twitter, then Reddit, then the local news. Top broker under fire after damning footage surfaces. She tried to deny it, claimed it was doctored, but more videos surfaced, some I hadn't even uploaded yet. Apparently, I wasn't the only one watching her. The final blow? A leaked audio file of her laughing with Brandon. If we push 2 more closings this week, I can finally cut my ties with Blaine. God, I'm so over pretending care. It aired on a podcast called Justice Files. It got 80,000 listens in 24 hours. Rhea's phone stopped ringing. Her inbox filled with cancellations. And Brandon? He was silent. Exposure doesn't always need fire. Sometimes all it takes is a screen and the truth. And now that the cracks were public, I was ready to split everything wide open. Rhea called me 3 days later. I didn't answer. She left a message. Her voice trembling like the woman I once loved was buried somewhere deep inside. "Blaine, I know you're behind this. I don't know how, but I know it's you. Just, please stop. I'll give you what you want. Just tell me what it is." She didn't get it. I didn't want anything. Not anymore. This wasn't about property, or status, or even vengeance. It was about letting her feel what I had felt. The loss. The helplessness. The drowning silence when no one believes you. I drove to a coffee shop that used to be our spot. Sat by the window. Watched people walk by. Everything looked the same. But I wasn't. Mark joined me an hour later, handed over a manila envelope. Inside, printed screenshots, bank transfers, text logs. Rhea had funneled money from a few shady house flips into a fake nonprofit she created under a friend's name. Tax fraud. White fraud. Intent to deceive. She wasn't spiraling because of rumors. She was spiraling because the floor under her was starting to break. That night, she went live on Instagram, eyes puffy, wine glass in hand. I've been targeted, stalked, harassed by someone who refuses to let me move on. Brandon commented, "LMAO." She ended the stream in tears. And I sat in my car, in the dark, watching it all unfold. Some people spiral into sadness. Others spiral into flames. She was both. She once told me she wanted to be remembered, to leave something behind. Not just money, she said, but a name, a reputation, a legacy. I watched her say it on a 5-year-old video. We were on the couch, drunk on cheap wine and bigger dreams. Back then, I believed her. Now, I was about to give her a legacy she'd never escape. Using the evidence Mark gave me, I sent an anonymous tip to the IRS and forwarded another to a popular real estate watchdog blog. But I didn't stop there. I contacted an old journalist friend, Megan Silva. Megan owed me a favor, and she didn't just want a story. She wanted a scandal. By the time her article dropped, the fall of a real estate queen, Rhea's world had already started shaking. But now, it collapsed. The story detailed her fake nonprofit, the doctored inspections, the inappropriate relationship with Brandon during client closings. Photos, names, dates, even her quotes, pulled from my recordings. The fallout was instant. Her license? Suspended. Her agency? Dropped her. Her clients? Gone. She called me again that night. No threats this time. Just silence. Then, why are you doing this? I didn't respond. Because deep down, she knew. This wasn't revenge anymore. It was her legacy, the one she built on lies. And I just made sure it was carved in stone. Sometimes, the past sends its own messengers. Mark reached out late one night. I found someone, he said. You're going to want to talk to him. His name was Eldon Reese, 74, retired, slow-moving, and sharper than a scalpel. He was one of Ria's early clients. The kind no one talks about after the deal is done. She sold me a dream, he said, sitting across from me in a dusty diner. Said it was a safe neighborhood. Said the foundation was solid. Said the neighbors were sweet. He paused, took a sip of lukewarm coffee. 3 months later, I was knee-deep in mold. Sewage lines were rotted. House was condemned. Know what she told me? What? He looked me dead in the eye. Should have read the fine print. Eldon had kept everything. Inspection reports, voicemails, even a letter Ria sent him, offering a quiet buyout in exchange for silence. Why didn't you take it? I asked. He smirked. Because snakes like her, they don't stop. They just move to better gardens. Eldon agreed to testify if it came to it. He even offered his documents to Megan, the journalist who broke Ria's story. The thing about witnesses? They don't just validate your story. They prove the villain never had just one victim. And now, Ria's past wasn't just haunting her. It was preparing to testify. For the first time in years, I felt it. Control. Not in a loud, dominating way, but subtle. Quiet. Like gripping the wheel of your life after watching it veer off a cliff. I didn't need to scream. Didn't need to confront her. All I had to do was tighten my grip, one move at a time. I filed a formal complaint with the state real estate board using Eldon's documents. Attached every photo, every falsified line of ink. Then I turned my attention to Brandon. Mark pulled his medical malpractice record. It wasn't clean. I dug deeper. Brandon had paid off 2 clients under the table in the past 3 years. Both cases involved botched procedures and NDA settlements. I copied the paperwork, sent it anonymously to the Oregon Medical Board with a short message. Still think your golden boy is clean? Every day now, Ria was losing something. A client, a contract, a lead. Every time she checked her phone, a new headline waited. I wasn't reacting anymore. I was orchestrating. Every leak, every witness, every accusation. It all led back to the same truth. You don't have to raise your voice to win a war. You just have to control the battlefield. The trap was never physical. No handcuffs. No police chase. It was psychological. A game of choices. And I made sure every choice Ria had led back to me. She tried to sell one of her remaining properties. An old fixer-upper she was flipping under a shell LLC. Problem was, the LLC had been registered under a false address. One I reported days before the sale went through. The deal tanked. The buyer sued. And the press? Oh, they had a field day. I watched from a bench outside the courthouse as Ria showed up in dark sunglasses, flanked by a different lawyer now. Her smirking shark had jumped ship. She looked smaller, colder. Brandon trailed behind her, silent, tight-lipped. He knew he was next. The final stage of the trap was simple. I scheduled a leak. An anonymous message to the media. She's been hiding something bigger. Check the nonprofit's funding trail. And inside that trail, a transfer to a name no one recognized. But I did. Marshall Cray, a ghost from her past. And now, her last loose thread. This wasn't just about revenge anymore. It was about truth, full exposure, and one final checkmate. Ria had walked into the courtroom thinking she controlled the game. She didn't realize she'd stepped into my trap. They almost pulled it off. For a while, I believed it was just cheating. A simple affair. Cold, calculated divorce. But then I found the file. Mark sent it without a subject line, just a zipped folder labeled Frame. Inside were photos I'd never seen before. Security footage, emails, even a video of me entering a hotel I'd never stayed in. And in every one, I looked guilty, drunk, disoriented, angry, but none of it was real. The timestamps didn't match my calendar. The location had no record of me checking in. Then the worst file, a screenshot of a drafted email from my account sent to Ria weeks before our divorce. If you don't give me what I want, I'll ruin your life. It was fake. A plant. They had been building a case against me before I even knew what game we were playing. I think they were prepping a character hit, Mark said over the phone. In case you went public, they needed you to look unstable. Ria didn't just leave me. She tried to frame me as a threat. Suddenly, everything made sense. The therapist she recommended. The moments she recorded without me knowing. The way her lawyer brought up emotional volatility during court. They wanted a trail of breadcrumbs that ended with my name burned in red. But they didn't expect me to find the oven first. And now that I had the proof, I wasn't just going to expose it. I was going to drag their entire blueprint into the light. Mark warned me to slow down. He said I was moving too fast, too loud, that I was kicking up dust in places I hadn't planned to. But there was a problem. I wasn't the only one digging. Someone else was watching me now, and they weren't leaving a trace. No emails, no login attempts, no messages, just signs. I come home to find the motel desk drawer open. My car door slightly ajar when I know I locked it. And one night, a sticky note on my windshield that said nothing except the word, easy. That's when I remembered the name, Marshall Cray. It popped up twice in a nonprofit's old financial reports, disguised under vendor services. Mark ran it. The file came back, sealed records. Former legal consultant, suspended license, connected to 3 different shell companies, all now dissolved. The man was a ghost, a phantom, and Ria had worked with him years ago, before we even got married. Suddenly it all widened. This wasn't just about cheating or fraud. This was about history, and I'd walked right into the middle of it. I asked Mark, how deep does this guy go? Mark paused. Cray? He's not your typical scam artist. He builds people like Ria, teaches them how to take, then disappear. And now, he knew I was chasing him, and he wanted me to feel it. There are lines you're not supposed to cross. Legal ones, moral ones, personal ones. I crossed them all by now. But this was different. I broke into an old real estate office Ria used to work for, one that had quietly changed ownership right after our divorce. It wasn't hard. The alarm system was outdated. The lock, old school. Inside, I found boxes labeled by year. 2016, 2017, 2018. I opened the one marked 2017, the year she first met Cray. At the bottom, contracts, flash drives, voice memos. I played one on a cheap office laptop. Cray's voice, smooth and patient. She won't see it coming. You're not here to fall in love. You're here to win. Ria's voice replied. I just don't want to end up hated. You will, he said, but only by the ones you've already buried. I sat there, frozen. They built me into a mark. From day one, not just for divorce, but to gain access to my network, my finances, my trust. I wasn't her husband. I was a stepping stone. And somewhere between the lies and the signatures, I crossed over too. Not into their world, into war. Because when someone builds their life off your bones, you don't just walk away. You cross back over and take it down brick by brick. And I wasn't leaving until every single lie collapsed under its own weight. I didn't expect blood. Not yet. I thought I was still in the phase where threats were whispered, not carved. But the morning I opened my motel door and saw the dead rabbit on my welcome mat, gutted, jaw wired shut, something shifted. There was no note, no signature, just a message, back off. Mark showed up an hour later. His jaw clenched. He didn't ask me how I was. He asked where I'd been. Don't lie, he said. They're tracking you. I know, I replied. And I'm done running. Later that night, I got a call. Unknown number. Static on the line. Then a voice I hadn't heard before. Slow, southern, sharp. You're bleeding in places you haven't even noticed yet, Blaine. Cray. I said. Silence. Then, you don't know what game you're playing, boy. You think this is about your wife? She was just a chapter. I write books. The line went dead. I stood there, phone still in my hand, and stared at the wall like it might blink back at me. This wasn't a petty revenge plot anymore. This was a machine, and I had ripped one of its wheels off. Now I wanted to grind me down. But I didn't care. I didn't start this, but I'd sure as hell finish it, even if I had to bleed to the last drop. I went quiet. No emails, no calls, no texts. I left my phone behind, burned the prepaid, and checked into a place that didn't ask for ID. I needed silence, not just from them, but from the chaos inside me. Because lately I'd been waking up at night, hands shaking, dreaming about courtrooms, broken glass, static voices. Silence can heal, but can also haunt. The quieter things got, the louder my memory played. The sound of her laugh at that party. The smirk on Manson's face. The judge's voice when he said, "Do you wish to contest the settlement?" I should have screamed. Instead, I stayed silent. And now I wondered, how much did that cost me? Mark called from a burner. "Something's coming. Bigger than before. You need to be ahead of it." I didn't speak. "Blaine, are you hearing me?" I was. But I wasn't listening. Because silence was finally showing me what I'd become. A ghost inside my own life. A man who traded love for vengeance and didn't know what the hell he was supposed to feel about it anymore. But in that silence, I also found my answer. I didn't need closure. I needed completion. And that wouldn't come from hiding. It would come from walking straight into the fire with my eyes open. You ever hear something that doesn't stop playing, even after the sound is gone? That's what she became. An echo. Rhea. In every voice that doubted me. Every headline that smeared my name. Every judge who looked bored when I said I'd been wronged. She echoed in my head like a bell that wouldn't quit, even when I thought I'd erased her. She found her way back. I was sitting in a diner off Route 89, coffee in hand, when I saw her face on TV. Local news update. A shocking new lead in the Halden real estate scandal. Former husband Blaine Huxley is now being considered a possible suspect in a string of anonymous cyber attacks. I choked on my drink. There was again. That same damn narrative. The one she started with her lawyer. Now echoing across stations, blogs, forums. Cray had flipped the script on me. I wasn't the Avenger anymore. I was the villain. I called Mark. "They're trying to flip the entire story." "Then flip it back," he said. "Ow! Stop whispering in shadows. Go loud." The next day, I booked an interview with Megan Silva. Not anonymous this time. I gave her everything. The emails, the recordings, the shell companies, even the files from Cray's days as a consultant. She looked at me, eyes wide. "You know this could go nuclear, right?" "Yeah," I said. "Good." I wasn't afraid of echoes anymore, because I was ready to shatter the entire chamber. This wasn't revenge anymore. It was a gamble, because once you go public with the truth, you lose control over what happens next. Megan Silva published her article under a title I didn't approve, but I understood why she picked it. The Husband Who Hacked Back. It hit 100,000 views within the first 6 hours. Inside the expose were screenshots of financial fraud, backdated documents, quotes from victims like Eldon Reese, and a redacted transcript of a voice recording where Cray referred to me as the puppet husband who needs to disappear. It was dangerous, risky, but necessary. The moment the article hit, my inbox exploded. Victims, former employees, even someone who claimed to be Rhea's ex-roommate with a story about a bribe and a buried sexual harassment case. I sat in a cheap hotel, watching the online fire spread. But that wasn't the gamble. The real gamble was the phone call I made next. To Cray. Private number. Mass location. "You think this ends with your article?" he said, amused. "You just gave me leverage." "No," I said calmly. "I gave you warning." "Of what?" "Of what's coming next. Check your email." Marshall. I had blind copied him on a second leak. This one sent to federal authorities, forensic accountants, and a few investigative attorneys I knew were hungry for something dirty and big. He paused. "You think this is chess?" "No," I said. "This is demolition." He hung up, and just like that, the real game had begun. The only thing that silences a lie is proof. And now, I had more than enough. Megan's article was just the surface. What came next was deeper, dangerous. The flash drive I recovered from that dusty real estate office. I finally cracked the last file. It was video. Footage of Cray and Rhea in a dark office. Time-stamped. No masks. No edits. Rhea says he's slow to react, but he's loyal. I can get his passwords by October. Cray, you sure you want to go that far? She laughs. I want his world. Not him. I watched it twice, 3 times. Each time, something inside me broke again, then hardened. This wasn't a mistake, a messy relationship. This was a cold, coordinated dismantling of a man's life. I submitted the video anonymously to the Oregon State Attorney's Office, then to a private victims' rights group, then to a podcast that specialized in white-collar crime. Within hours, people were talking. By the next morning, local law enforcement reopened an investigation into Cray's nonprofit. They called it a possible RICO case. Rio went silent. Brandon deactivated his Instagram. Cray's shell company sites disappeared one by one. But me? I was louder than ever. Proof doesn't just change minds. It changes everything. It was almost poetic. The lake house, the one Rio won in court, the one I designed, caught fire. Early morning blaze. No one hurt. No arrests. No leads. Just ashes. The fire department ruled it an electrical fault. But I knew better, because I saw the photo later that day, sent to me from an unknown number. A single shot. The lake house up in flames. And on the back window, written in soot, told you I'd burn what you love. It wasn't Cray's voice this time. It was hers. Rhea, desperate, cornered, and finally showing her teeth. She thought destroying the house would make me fold. But she still didn't get it. That house wasn't mine anymore. She took it, then she burned it. And now, she had nothing left to hide behind. No career, no money, no image. Just fire, smoke, and an open investigation. I looked at the photo again, not with fear, with peace. Because if fire was the language she wanted to speak, then maybe it was time I lit a match of my own. She called me again. This time, she didn't sound angry. She sounded hollow. No demands. No threats. Just a single sentence. You broke me. I almost felt sorry for her. Almost. But then I remembered the camcorder footage. The false documents. The years she spent sharpening the blade she eventually stuck in my back. So I said nothing. Because here's the thing, I didn't break her. She did that all by herself. I only pulled back the curtain. Rhea was a master of manipulation. She turned people into tools, twisted stories into shields, and played victim like it was a second language. But even the best puppeteers forget one thing. Eventually, the strings tangle. And when that happens, the whole show collapses. I hung up. She didn't call back. Later that night, I got a message from Megan. Cray's been officially named in the fraud investigation. His legal team's pushing for a deal. That's when I knew. The break had come. Not in me. In them. And now that the first crack had formed, the whole damn wall was about to fall. Mark always said, if you want the truth, follow the money. If you want the power, follow the silence. But if you want everything, you plant a wire. Brandon Lux had kept his head down through most of the fallout. No posts, no press, no public statements. But he was still active in quiet corners, still protecting Rhea, still hiding something. Samar set it up. One of his old contacts posed as a potential investor in a luxury surgical clinic. Brandon took the bait. They met in a private lounge uptown. What Brandon didn't know. He was wearing a mic. Rhea's taking all the heat right now, Brandon said, voice low. That was the plan. Let her carry it if things went south. The investor nodded. You weren't involved? Brandon laughed. I gave her the paperwork. Cray gave her the roadmap. All I did was make sure no one died. A pause. Except maybe her career, he added. The wire picked up everything. And when the transcript hit Megan's inbox, she forwarded it straight to the authorities. Brandon wasn't just a side piece. He was a co-conspirator. And now, his name was going on the wall right next to hers. Rhea always thought she had control. But in the end, she'd been wired up since the beginning. And now, every secret she whispered was a bullet in her own chamber. The storm didn't come with thunder. It came with headlines. Medical Board opens investigation into Dr. Brandon Lux. Real estate fraud ring possibly linked to tax evasion scheme. Husband turned hacker claims conspiracy in viral court case. Every major news outlet picked up the story. Even the national ones. TV anchors dissected it like a crime drama. Podcasters called it the smartest long-play revenge story of the decade. And Rhea? She went dark. No phone. No socials. No sightings. But the storm wasn't waiting on her schedule. The IRS contacted Megan asking for her source files. The Oregon State Attorney subpoenaed bank records. Cray's name was formally added to the fraud investigation. And me? I watched it all from a rooftop cafe with black coffee in one hand and my old wedding ring in the other. I didn't feel joy. I didn't feel hate. I felt release. The storm wasn't mine to stop anymore. I had set the winds in motion, lit the first spark, loosened the first brick. Now I was tearing through everything. I had become the eye of it, calm, still, unapologetically centered in the destruction of people who once thought I was disposable. And yet, I knew it wasn't over. Not yet, because somewhere out there, Rhea still had one card left. The only question was, would she play it or bury it? The mask slipped when she walked through the cafe door. Maddie, the judge's daughter, the one who smiled without asking too many questions, the one I thought might be a fresh start. She wasn't supposed to be part of this storm, but there she was, looking different now, like someone who had just stepped out of a war room, not a classroom. She sat across from me, silent at first. Then, you went public. I nodded. Had to. She looked me in the eye. And now Cray's name is trending. You know what that means? I do. She leaned in, her voice low. He ruined my mother. A long time ago. But no one believed her. No one investigated. He buried her career and reputation so deep. Even I almost forgot the details. And you let me do all this, I said, realization creeping in. Because you knew it would bring him out. She nodded. Was I part of the plan? She didn't answer. Didn't have to. Her silence was my answer. I wasn't the only one who wore a mask. But I couldn't decide if I felt betrayed or impressed. Because if Maddie had played me, she'd played me beautifully. Cray made his move. The next morning, Megan's email was hacked. Her article pulled. Backups deleted from her cloud. But we'd expected that. I had 6 copies, on 6 drives, mailed to 6 locations. Still, Cray's message was clear. I'm not finished yet. It was his play. A warning shot. A reminder. He wasn't just a manipulator. He was a tactician. A man who moved pieces long before anyone else even sat at the table. And Maddie? She was part of the game, too. She showed up at my motel that night. Rain soaking her coat. Hair wild. You think I don't feel guilty? She said, standing in the doorway. I used you, but I didn't fake it. Not all of it. Which parts were real? I asked. She hesitated. I don't know anymore. Neither did I. But something in me, something cold and old, said this was exactly how Cray operated. He made people choose chaos, then punish them for drowning in it. You want to finish this? Maddie asked. Yeah, I said, but not with another article or another wiretap. She nodded. Then it's time to stop reacting. What do we do instead? She looked up at me with a fire in her eyes I hadn't seen before. We play. We weren't on even ground anymore. Not with Cray. He had lawyers, money, ties to old names in high places. But he was also reckless now, rattled. And when men like him get rattled, they move to cover, not to attack. That's where I had the edge. Maddie and I built a plan. We dug up Cray's old court settlements, ones connected to shell firms that no longer existed. We found a trail that led to a private ledger, one where names were scrubbed, payments coded, but dates and routing numbers still visible. We cross-checked them. 3 payouts matched known whistleblower silences. One of them was Maddie's mom. Her name never showed, but the payout did. It was her, Maddie whispered. I always knew. We took the info to a federal prosecutor. A hungry one, the type who wanted to make headlines. But just before we handed it over, my burner rang. Cray, you keep pushing this. I'll put you on a slab beside your past. No more threats, I said. You think you're holding a weapon, he growled. But all you're holding is a match. Then I hope you've built your house out of gasoline. He went quiet. Click. I stared at the phone. I had him, not just on his lies, on his fear. For the first time, he was on the edge. The last time I stood in a courtroom, I was watching my life get carved up like cheap meat. This time, I wasn't the one on trial. They were. The courthouse felt colder than I remembered. Same walls, same judge, but everything else had changed. Now, Rhea, Brandon, and Marshall Cray sat at the defendant's table, each with their own attorney, each pretending they weren't watching each other sink. Cray sat straight-backed. No twitch, no fear. Rhea looked thinner, paler. She didn't wear black this time. She wore beige. soft, safe, like she was still trying to look like the victim. And Brandon? He looked like a man who'd already lost before the opening statement began. The prosecution led with the timeline, the fraud trail, the fake nonprofit, the forged contracts. Then came the recordings, the ones Cray thought were buried, the ones of Rhea laughing, of Brandon talking payments, of Cray mentoring her like a devil in a suit. The jury shifted in their chairs. Eyebrows rose. Pens scribbled. Megan sat in the gallery, her face calm. Mark sat beside her. Maddie just behind me. And for the first time, I realized something. This wasn't just about winning. It was about watching the system do what it should have done long ago. Sir Justice, when the judge called recess, I turned just enough to see Rhea look at me. She didn't mouth anything, didn't smile. She just stared, and I knew what she was thinking. How did it come to this? The second day of the trial was when it all cracked. Rhea took the stand. She swore in slowly, adjusted the mic like she had something important to say. The courtroom held its breath. Her lawyer started soft. Miss Halden, did you love your husband? She blinked. Once. Then twice. I did, she said. Once. And now I don't know what I feel. Then the questions got harder. Did you conspire to manipulate property records? Yes. Did you funnel funds through a nonprofit in your name? Yes. Did you falsely accuse Blaine Huxley of emotional instability in your original affidavit? Pause. That one hit. She looked down, then at me. Her voice cracked when she answered. Yes. A low murmur rolled through the courtroom. The judge banged his gavel. Silence. But the silence that followed was heavier than any sound could have been. She wiped her face. I didn't plan to destroy him at first. I didn't want to lose. And then I convinced myself he was the enemy. That it was okay to ruin him if it meant I got what I wanted. No one moved. Not Cray. Not Brandon. Not me. It was a confession, not just of a crime, but of a transformation. From wife to weapon. From woman to storm. I didn't feel triumph. I felt closure. Finally, the judge gavelled in the final decision a week later. Cray guilty. 5 counts. Fraud. Tax evasion. Conspiracy. Brandon guilty. Accessory. Professional misconduct. License permanently revoked. Rhea guilty. Fraud. False reporting. Real estate license terminated. No prison time, but restitution, community service, and a lifetime ban from the industry. Some people were disappointed. Not me. Because what mattered to Rhea wasn't freedom. It was image. And now, her name was scorched. I stepped outside the courthouse into the light I hadn't felt in years. Not the sun. Relief. A long, slow release of pressure I didn't realize I'd carried every single day since she said, "It's over." Mark clapped my back. Megan nodded. Maddie just smiled. "You free now?" she asked. I looked at the sky, breathed in. I think I finally am. Because it wasn't about getting everything back. It was about finally letting it all go and walking into a new life without her shadow trailing behind me. I didn't pack much. Just a laptop, a duffel bag of clothes, a few flash drives. Everything else left behind in Portland, including the name Blaine Huxley. I drove south, windows down, radio off, just the sound of the tires and wind filling the space I used to fill with doubt. I stopped outside Sedona. Small town, quiet, mountains rising like rust-colored guardians around every street. Rented a cabin on the edge of nowhere. No neighbors, no cameras, just me in a sky full of stars. The distance felt good, not just physical, but emotional. I wasn't haunted every time I passed a building she sold. Wasn't reminded of her perfume in the coffee shop down the street. Wasn't waiting to run into Brandon's smug face. The revenge? It was done, but the healing? Still happening. I thought of everything I lost. My time, my dignity, my belief in people, but also what I gained. Clarity, peace, control. The silence didn't feel heavy anymore. It felt earned, and for the first time in years. I didn't dream of her. It came in a plain white envelope. No return address. I almost tossed it until I saw her handwriting on the front. Rhea. The paper was creased, folded tight, like it had traveled through hell to reach me. I opened it slowly, expecting venom or one final twist of a knife. But it wasn't that. It was honest. Blaine, I know you hate me. I think I hated me too for a while. I didn't write to explain what I did. There's no defense. But I wanted you to know there were moments. Real ones. That night at the lake. The pizza after your dad's funeral. The time we danced in the hallway to no music. I remember all of it. I don't expect forgiveness. I don't even expect this letter to matter. But maybe if there's a version of you out there that still believes people can change, I hope you're becoming him. I'm sorry. Rhea, I read it twice. Then once more. Folded it, put it back in the envelope, and slid it into the drawer beside my bed. I didn't burn it. Didn't rip it. Didn't answer it. Because some letters aren't meant to be replied to. Maddie visited a week later. She didn't text first. Just showed up at the door with 2 coffees and eyes that looked like they hadn't fully rested since the trial ended. We sat outside. No words at first. The sky was wide open. Arizona, heat curling around us. You've changed, she said finally. Maybe, I replied. Maybe I just peeled everything off. She nodded. I'm thinking about leaving Portland. Why? She shrugged. I've done what I came to do. Exposed him. Cleared my mom's name. Helped you win. And now? I don't know, she said, then looked at me. I think I'm ready to start something without fire behind me. We sat in the silence. She looked at me. Really looked. You want company in that silence. It wasn't flirtation. Wasn't pressure. It was a question. A real one. And I had a choice. To close the chapter completely and walk into the desert alone. Or to open a new one, knowing it might carry risk, but this time on my terms. I sipped the coffee, took a long breath, then nodded. Not a promise, just the beginning. Because healing isn't loud, and forgiveness isn't always a grand gesture. Sometimes it's just 2 people sitting in the sun, saying, let's see where this goes. I stood in front of the fireplace for a long time, holding the flash drive. It was the original one, the folder named Wife's Mistake, the one that started it all. Photos, screenshots, recordings, all the receipts of betrayal that I had used to tear Rhea's world apart. I could have kept it. For safety. For spite. For history. But I didn't need it anymore. I didn't need to prove anything. Not to her. Not to the courts. Not even to myself. The world knew the truth now. And more importantly, so did I. I opened the fireplace doors, flipped the latch, and knelt down. Held the drive between my fingers. You'd think it would feel heavy. But it didn't. It felt small. Insignificant. Like all this time, I had treated this object like a weapon. A shield. A relic. But it was just plastic. I tossed it into the flames. Watched as it curled, melted, and disappeared. Not because I wanted to forget, but because I didn't need to carry it anymore. That night, I took a long walk through the desert behind my cabin. The stars stretched out forever. The wind had no scent. The quiet was real. I returned home, showered, changed, made coffee. I looked in the mirror, and for the first time in a very long time, I felt clean. Not polished, not proud, but clean. Like a man who had crawled through something dark and come out without needing to explain how or why. Only that he did. It wasn't loud. Peace never is. It didn't arrive with a bang or a final phone call or a neat little bow. It just happened. One morning, I woke up and realized my chest didn't feel heavy. My phone didn't buzz with chaos. My thoughts didn't orbit Rhea or Cray or courtrooms or fire. I sat on the porch. Same cup of coffee. Same sky. But everything was different. Because I was different. No more paranoia. No more plans. I wasn't calculating anymore. I wasn't waiting for the next attack. I wasn't watching the clock, wondering when something would be taken from me again. It was quiet. And not the suffocating kind of quiet I'd known before. It was the kind that heals. I looked at the red rock cliffs in the distance, watched the sun touch the edges of the canyon, and just let myself breathe. Maddie joined me around noon. She didn't knock. She didn't ask if it was okay. She just sat beside me with her own mug, legs pulled up in the chair, face half lit by sunlight. You okay? She asked. I thought about it. Really thought. Then I said it out loud. Yeah, I think I actually am. She smiled, leaned her head against my shoulder. We didn't talk much after that. Because peace isn't about filling silence. It's about being comfortable enough not to. The last time I heard those words, They came from a man in a courtroom suit. Enjoy your new life. Back then, it sounded like a threat, like a shove off a cliff disguised as a handshake. But now it feels different. Because this life, I chose it. I built it from scratch. Without her. Without fear. Without needing to prove anything to anyone. Just a man. A cabin. A sky full of peace. The past didn't vanish. It still visits sometimes in dreams, in shadows, in a random headline that floats by on someone else's phone. But it doesn't own me anymore. I let go. I healed. And somehow, I'm still here. Not just alive, but living. If you made it this far, then maybe a part of you walked this journey with me. From betrayal, to revenge, to something better. Let me ask you something. Where in the world are you watching from right now? Drop your city in the comments. I want to see where this storm reached. And if this story hit you hard, or hit you just right, don't forget to tap that like button, share it with someone who needs to feel a little fire, and subscribe with the bell on, so you never miss what's coming next. Because stories like this, they don't end. They evolve. And who knows, the next one might start right where this one left off. Tell me in the comments, what was your favorite moment? What would you have done differently? And how did you feel at the end? This wasn't just a story. This was a war with a heartbeat. And you? You made it all the way to the other side with me. Thank you. Welcome to your new life. And a story